Hello guys and gals and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be going over one of my favorites from previous seasons and also one of my favorites now too, and that is the Frostburn gauntlets. And I've got so many pairs of Frostburn gauntlets. I need to go through them all and delete certain ones from existence and see which ones are the best and whatnot. I think I'm currently wearing the best, but I'm not entirely sure. I can always compare them against each other and see which ones are like the bestest. But of course mine are masterworked and these aren't, which does of course make it more difficult. But let's go ahead and go over some of these, and we're going to go over one of the basic ones without the greater affixes on it. That's why I kept it. First off, Frosties are a pair of gloves. You can find them from A Beast in the Ice relatively easily. If you ever want to look up the location that you can find these particular items, on Diablo 4.life we do have a unique item target farming tool, which will help you figure out exactly which bosses to go and kill for these pieces of equipment. You can also get Fists of Fate from Beast in the Ice too, which are very popular this season. So you can kill two birds with one stone. Now, the Frostburn gauntlets do have a pretty nice increased attack speed of 10.5 to 15%, which is very nice. And as you can clearly see, when they get the greater affix roll, they go up to 22.5% increased attack speed, which is just so beautiful. We also have a fire and cold damage bonus on here now of up to 182.1% fire and cold damage, which could be very useful for a fire and cold sorceress, and also, honestly, anybody who's scaling cold damage, like a cold imbue rogue, if you're using, say, Azure Raft, for instance, which also has cold damage. There are a lot of different characters who are using fire or cold damage. The Barbarian has the Hellhammer now, which does fire damage directly and could be an interesting synergy as well, so not exactly a terrible choice. And on top of that, they also threw on some lucky hit damage of a lucky hit up to a 40% chance to deal 4,000 fire damage, and lucky hit up to a 40% chance to deal 3,800 or up to 4,000 cold damage. And this is actually really interesting because it could actually synergize well with the Tal Rasha's Iridescent Loop, because just simply putting this on would give you the fire and the cold if you were using a lightning build. And that would allow you to have the multiplier without having to add on anything else, which is pretty neat. On top of this, we also have the special effect, and the special effect is actually extraordinarily powerful. It's a lucky hit of up to now a 60% chance. It used to only be like a 25% chance back in the day, and it is a much higher percent chance now, to freeze enemies for up to 3 seconds. It works really well. Let me just say, like, the previous version worked really well. This one works really well. Now, this doesn't work against bosses, but the freezing effect does actually provide a large amount of stagger due to my stagger testing. And if you want to take a look at my stagger testing video, that is still up on my channel. Just type in Diablo 4 stagger testing. I'm sure it will pop up. One of the things that we found out was that chills and slows and things generally don't really affect bosses' stagger bar very much at all, but hard CC, like stuns and freezes and taunts and things like that, that are going to affect the monster in a much stronger way, have a much stronger effect on the stagger bar in general. So a direct chance to freeze an enemy, especially a boss, can often cause the boss to get staggered very, very fast. Now, I have a couple here that rolled greater affixes, and honestly, they're all really interesting. I'm wearing the one that has the greater affix on the cold damage, which went up to 7,200 with the master working, which is really nice. I'm actually capped out on attack speed, which is the reason why I'm not using the attack speed one. So if you take a look at my attack speed, I'm currently at a 100% bonus. And even if I put the 22.5s on, I'm still at 100% bonus because I'm capped out on the raw attack speed that I can get. There's other ways that you can get attack speed. There's another attack speed calculation that's like behind the scenes, but this attack speed is not part of that attack speed calculation. So once you hit your 100%, you're as fast as you're going to get, as far as this is concerned. Now, the flavor text says, a touch so frigid it stops the heart and chills the very soul. That's right. Now, I've used this successfully on quite a few builds in a lot of ways. One of my favorites is this particular aspect called the Icy Alchemist aspect, which basically allows you to lucky hit when you hit an enemy that is essentially frozen or chilled with a Shadow Imbued skill, it has a chance to release a Cold Explosion, and if they were already chilled or frozen, increases this damage by 100% times. And of course, this is really, really nice because if I'm, utilizing this properly, and I fire off my attack and freeze all the targets, and then I utilize my Shadow Imbuement, I can get these beautiful explosions this way. And as you can see, I can get a lot of explosions with this particular build. Just to give you guys a piece of the pudding there. It's a very fun build with tons of explosions, and even though the small hits are not exactly the most amazing, as you can see, I've got quite a bit of poison damage there too, with 6.2 million poison damage stacking. This build is very fun to play, and it basically revolves around utilizing that chance to freeze to get more explosions, and obviously also to enhance other things like the number of crowd control effects on the enemy, and so forth and so on. It's just a fun little pair of gloves, and quite honestly, it can enhance a large number of builds pretty dramatically. Like I said, it can synergize very well with other uniques. Like for instance, if you happen to be using the Azure Wrath, the Azure Wrath has a relatively large amount of cold damage and also freezes enemies, which is just another way that you could potentially be freezing enemies. It also has a chance to deal cold damage as well on the lucky hit, and combining together Azure Wrath and Frostburns could give you a really ridiculous chance to freeze enemies. And on top of that, also enhance the cold damage of the Azure Wrath and add even more cold damage into your attack cycle, or 24,060 cold damage there, and an additional 6,500 cold damage on the lucky hit bonus, which is very nice. On top of this, the Frostburns also synergize pretty well with the Hellhammer, which has been changed basically to completely fire damage with 300% damage to burning enemies. It has igniting the enemies for 10,000 damage with a multiplier based on your strength bonus, and of course Frostburns are now giving an additive bonus to fire damage, and so setting up for a Hellhammer build could be very interesting with a pair of Frosties in tow. And then the monsters are going to be burning and frozen at the same time, which sounds like a contradiction, but also sounds pretty fun in terms of damage output, because they're going to be stuck there while they burn. And there's definitely a lot of fun things that you can do with Frosties. I've had so many builds utilizing these, and the changes that they've made to them are definitely very interesting. The huge amount of attack speed that they got is obviously just amazing, especially if you get a greater affix version, and can fix a lot of your attack speed problems. The additional elemental damage can definitely be very interesting for a lot of cases, like for instance the Tau Rush's Iridescent Loop, giving you some elemental damage for that without having to add any elemental damage in. You can also potentially use it to scale your fire or cold damage, because since it actually gives you both, and on top of that, it also gives you the ability to freeze enemies, adding a large amount of crowd control to your build. And unless you have a specific build that requires a pair of gloves, it's definitely a very interesting and honestly even defensive item as well, because obviously if everything's frozen, well, it's not hitting back, because, you know, when you're frozen, you don't really do a lot of hitting back because you're a popsicle. A meat popsicle. That's pretty much it. I actually have been trying to farm myself a perfect version of these. I would love to get my hands on like a 4 greater affix version of these with like 60% lucky hit chance to freeze enemies. I think it would be amazing. I forgot how fun my rogue is. I was sitting there playing with my rogue, and she's just like blowing everything up, and I'm like, yeah, yeah. And everything's just frozen constantly too. Like, I mean, you can see like literally, it doesn't even take very much effort with the Frosties, and everything is frozen. Like the whole freaking room is frozen at this particular point. And you know, just getting all my damage numbers running. Like if I'm standing at a nice angle, so I'm hitting like in a straight line, because of course penetrating shot goes through, and I start with my rotation. So we're gonna start Shadow Imbuement, Poison Imbuement, Rain of Arrows. And I just keep doing this rotation for a little while. Why not? I don't even need to do Dark Shroud, Dust Shroud. I don't even know why I'm doing Dust Shroud. I guess it just gives me an additional pump here. I mean, as you can see, it's a pretty fun little build with tons of damage pumps. I'm hitting like 15 million on my poison bleed there, as you can see. 15 million is not exactly terrible. And honestly, this character's got a lot further to go, min-maxing and scaling and getting everything set up properly. I probably want to include the creeping death aspect. I'm currently using Eaglehorn, but quite honestly, I think switching to the creeping death aspect would have a huge bonus for me because obviously I'm applying crowd controls with freeze, right? I got different crowd control effects. I could potentially add even more crowd control effects in other ways. There's definitely a lot of ways to add crowd control effects to your character. Um, and it's just a very fun build in general with Frosties. I think that's pretty much it for this particular item. If you are interested, oh, I forgot about the implicit. I totally skipped over the implicit. They added an 8% lucky hit as an implicit on the item, which is a passive effect. And you don't normally see passive effects on items like you see it on weapons. Weapons have passive effects, but you don't normally see it on things like, like an armor or a helmet or whatever. But they started adding passive effects to items now, and they basically added just an additional 8% lucky hit as a passive effect. Now, that means it can't be targeted by the greater affixes, but it's just a free 8% additional lucky hit chance as well on top of everything else, which is very nice. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys watching. Be sure to hit that like button and the subscribe button. And as always, keep watching.